10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Warning. The material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Caughton. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM Show on WLFE-DB Radio Network. I'm your host, Jason. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Watch us live on WLFE-DB.com, on Strim TV under the Variety Unlimited channel, or on twitch.tv/The Bipolar DM on 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays. You can contact the show if you're interested in making a comment or topic suggestion, and my email address is thebipolardm@gmail.com, or you can visit my webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. There you'll find resources as well as links to my live shows that I have going on, and also my blog, which we do still occasionally do, and a podcast. If you are a supporter of the show and would like to help us out, we have a Patreon account. If you go to patreon.com/thebipolardm, you can find out more about how you can help out us in our endeavors, such as Dungeons and Dog Tags, where we bring Dungeons and Dragons to our veterans and our military, both virtually and physically, as well as Bipolar Dragons, our live stream show, and other things. There's different levels of support and that you can participate in, with goodies as well for rewards for helping us out. We also have merchandise for sale on Facebook. If you're interested in buying t-shirts or stickers or buttons, we have those available if you go to facebook.com/bipolardm. And finally, we are a proud supporter of Safe Space. If you look right over here to the corner, the little Safe Space logo. And we are a virtual place that you can go to if you're in crisis or in need. We are not doctors, we're not psychiatrists or lawyers or anything like that. We're not here to solve your problems, but we are here to listen and without judgment. And so if you go to WLFE-DB.com, click on that Safe Space button. You can also be connected with some resources that we have available too, such as the Trevor Project. Okay. We have a great guest that is returning today, Mike. He was on before, and we want to catch up with him and some of the things that he has going on. So let's go ahead and bring him on board. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So let's go ahead and we'll just start off with, for those that are watching the show and haven't seen you before, who are you and what is it that you do?
My name's Mike Thiel. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Illinois, and I work primarily with individuals with just pretty much any diagnosis or just need help. And recently, October of last year, I started doing group therapy with D&D.
Excellent. And what got you started into doing the therapy with D&D?
I think I came across an article that was talking about the potential mental health benefits of playing, and I started reading it just out of curiosity. And then from there, just started clicking on sources and going deeper and deeper. And the more I read, the more benefits I found they could have. Where it basically just playing D&D in the setting of in a therapeutic setting can offer all of the potential benefits that, say, individual counseling can,
Mm-hmm.
and plus some that individuals simply can't offer, primarily with like social anxiety or social skills. In that, like when I work with someone, say with social anxiety in an individual setting, it involves teaching them tools and skills to use, but then they
Right.
have to go out in the real world and practice those, and that can be really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because there can be potential real life consequences that can happen from those interactions, that those can just add to the weight of the social anxiety and make it
Mm-hmm.
harder to fight against it, which is what I always tell people is the best way to fight against something like anxiety is you got to fight it. It's like a bully.
Mm-hmm.
You fight back. But with the group therapy, so instead of doing just learning tools and skills, instead we play the game, and it focuses on the social interaction. So you get to try things out, talk and do things, interact with other people with zero potential real world consequences. So it kind of takes all the weight of those away from the anxiety. You just play and have fun, and then get all the benefits.
Excellent. Now, what marks what's the marked difference between just playing Dungeons and Dragons and doing it in a therapeutic setting?
Primarily, it's just taking the game and shifting the focus slightly to the more social interactions, or giving the option for it. Like one thing I did pretty early on was, so I didn't want to say like, no combat, or punish the players or characters for getting into combat, because I mean it's D&D, it's one of the three
Yeah.
pillars. But I did want to reward creative thinking, problem solving, thinking outside of the box. So what I came up with is doing an XP leveling system with them. And combat, they just get whatever the standard XP would be from the combat encounter.
Mm-hmm.
But then if they come up with a way to solve the problem, or get to the objective and avoid even entering combat period, but still do what they need to do, then they can earn a percentage like 150%, or just more XP.
Okay.
And the more creative and outside of the box, the more potential XP. So I reward the creative thinking, but don't punish the combat.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And how long have you been doing this?
We started. It was the end of September last year, and then it really got going in October once we got past the character creation and tech stuff, and we really
Yeah.
got playing in the first two games in October, and then just within the last month, I started my first adult group.
Okay. Excellent. And let's see. Oh, I had a question right on the top of my tongue, and now I just totally forgot it. Let me see if I can remember this one. Crap. It'll come back to me probably like later on after the show's over.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that's the story of my life.
Yeah, but it's really amazing what you're doing. Did you do any specialized training to bridge that gap between just being a therapist and being a therapeutic dungeon master? Did you do anything like that, or is this mostly stuff that you've worked out on your own?
So far, it is stuff I've worked out on my own, incorporating all the research that I did. But I've also, on your recommendation, I checked out the Geek Therapeutics program. I am in the process of becoming a certified geek therapist.
All right.
I haven't had a chance yet to do too many classes just because of a lot of stuff going on. But so I plan on learning from that some more specifics on how to make it more therapeutic without adding any direct therapeutic interventions at all.
Yeah.
Because if I start adding anything where it feels like they're in therapy, then it'll take away from it.
Yeah, kind of dispel the magic of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What you got going on there? So let's talk about some of your other endeavors. Like one of the other things that you're really big into is crafting, dungeon master crafting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hold on.
Disturbing to meditation devices.
No, I don't want to talk to you. I got a new phone. I haven't figured out how to silence it yet.
Oh yeah, always fun.
I'm switching over from Apple to Android, so
That's
a big
switch.
it's a switch. It's not so much the software though. It's kind of sucky where there's things I want to do, but I don't know how to do them yet on an Android, such as like well, I just figured out how to assign a text tone to a particular person, which is a lot easier on an Apple. The Android is like 3 or 4 steps you got to go through before you can do that, and it's But I was sick of Apples, sick of having, they phased out my phone. It was an iPhone 6, and they phased that out, or about to. And like the next phone up was like $400 or $500, and I'm like, screw that. No, that's just crazy. Now, well, let's get back into some of your other endeavors, which was the crafting. Some of this. Now, how long have you been doing the crafting as a hobby?
Probably about 3 years or so, because I've been playing and mostly DMing for a little over 3, and I think a few months in, my first DM, the one that got me playing 5th edition, he was a crafter, and we were just hanging out, chatting, and he was kind of just fiddling with stuff, and I just asked if I could help. I think he was making dungeon tiles, the Black Magic Craft system, and so I just asked him what to do, and just could see the effect instantly, like just taking that ball of aluminum foil and pushing it up against the foam, and how that stone texture appears, and I just got hooked instantly and started watching. Yeah, Black Magic Craft and every other crafting video I could
DM
find.
Scotty, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The godfather of cheap crafting.
Oh yeah, OG, yeah. I made a bunch of stuff based on ideas from him.
Yeah, I do too. I've been doing it for a couple of years and really enjoy it. My players enjoyed it. Of course, during COVID when we weren't doing the in-person games, that kind of went on sidelines for almost a year actually, before I picked it up again. But when I did, I love just kind of the therapeutic value where you can kind of shift your brain into neutral and you can go to work on building something. And that's been very therapeutic for me, being able to do that, but also burn time too, because I'm a disabled vet, so I got nothing but time on my hands, and so.
Yeah, it's perfect for that. Yeah, like I have ADHD, so being passionate about something is one of my engagement triggers, something that'll engage my focus. And because I've been so passionate about it, it's like you just kind of lose track of the time. You can practice mindfulness while you're doing it, just staying in the present moment. And actually my DM that taught me the crafting had an accident, and ended up where he had to do rehab for a while and couldn't really leave the house. So he crafted a bunch of stuff, and he said that was what helped him basically stay sane while being stuck in the house, I think, for almost a year.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. And I even incorporate the crafting into my individual work as well. I'll do projects with kids. Because when they enjoy it, they get to build it and have fun. Like the initial project I always start with is I just make a bunch of the loose little bricks, and then we glue together, and I show them how to make the castle, and then I do the black paint and Mod Podge coat myself, because that's so messy. I don't want them to have to do it. But then and then I teach them just the simple, just dry brushing, and how just by layering the colors and doing a light dry brush, how you can turn pink foam to looking like real stonework, and then they get something cool that they get to take home and show off. But it gives us something to do while we're talking. which is,
Yeah.
I think, really important and can help kind of lower barriers that somebody might have, or make people feel more comfortable, because like you're just having fun building something, so you lose track of the fact that you're in a counselor's office. It's more about the having fun, and you can talk and build rapport.
Yeah, and also those, I know some people get very uncomfortable with long silences too and stuff like that. So that's a great way to have a kind of a distraction from that and not be so self-conscious about coming up with an answer.
And it can help people get comfortable with silence, because sometimes there is silences while we're just working, but like
Yeah.
but it has that comfortable silent feel, not that awkward, though nobody knows what to say kind of silence.
Yeah. So what do you got coming up on projects? We talked a little bit about something that you're building on using a Lazy Susan, parts from a water heater, and lots of XPS foam and magnets.
Yeah, so coming up at the end of March is GaryCon in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is luckily not too far from where I live in Illinois. So and they're doing in person this year after a virtual year last year. So I was super excited when I saw that and signed up, and I'm DMing 5 events, and for a few of those, I've built I'm going to build a Lazy Susan mechanism, so I can build stuff and then players can shift it to see what they need to, so I don't have to worry about covering up, with walls where they can't get a good view, and things like that. But multi-level things. It's gonna be the biggest projects I've ever made by far. It's a 2-foot diameter circle that it's being built on that I have to play with. So
yeah. That's gonna be a bit of work getting that knocked out before GaryCon. We got a month left.
Yeah.
And I still have to work on my campaign. I'm doing a mini campaign on the virtual GaryCon, and so I got four 3-hour sessions that I'm doing, and I'm just building a mini campaign that if you stick with it from beginning to end, it has a whole story arc and everything like that. But if you should jump in the middle, it's no big deal and everything like that, because each game is self-contained.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm really looking forward to that. I did it last GaryCon, and that's where I had gotten the idea for Dungeons and Dog Tags, was from doing that, and so I'm really looking forward to it, and the panels too. They had some awesome panels last year. They did have some on therapy and Dungeons and Dragons. I'm hoping they bring back some more of that. I love listening in on people's insights on using D&D in a therapeutic setting, and always looking to glean and learn to improve my own DMing skills as a mindful DM. Even though we are not in a traditional therapeutic setting, there is therapy in Dungeons and Dragons, I feel, just in the game in of itself, and the camaraderie of joining together in a group, especially with other veterans and active duty, and really have enjoyed this little project that we've been doing.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, I know. And that was part of why I wanted to involve the D&D directly into the group therapy, because like as I was doing the research, I looked back at the last couple years, and being stuck in the house and not getting to do many things, like it was always D&D was what I looked forward to every week, and it was just the 3-ish hours of just forgetting everything else and getting into the world and the story if I was the DM, or my character in the story if I was a player, and looking back, I realized how beneficial it was for me over that time, and so that was a lot of the inspiration for starting.
Yeah, and I found a lot of therapeutic value in also being a DM. Not just a player in the game, but also being a DM from improv. Thinking on your feet, how to get out of my comfort zone, and trying voices and characters. Also, it's kept me busy and focused. With with time, with prep work and stuff like that, time management. So, when I'm not living on a clock, it kind of gets me back into that. And one of the things I've also noticed is the plasticity in my mind has gotten a lot better since I've been doing multiple games. So my memory and my cognitive functions have sharpened up again because they've gotten really dull from not being used for long periods of time. So I've been getting a lot out of just DMing games too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, neuroplasticity is something I always give education on to clients about how it works, and how we can create new neural pathways and literally change the physical structure of our brain just with thought, something that's intangible. And so yeah, it's really important to use those. And DMing, it kind of makes us utilize stuff that we may not use in everyday life. And especially the improv, that can be very interesting. It's like when your characters take that hard right turn that you never would have predicted in a million years.
Off
you
the
have
rails.
nothing prepped for it. Yeah, and they always, of course, do it like 15 minutes into the session.
Yeah.
So all your prep work is out the window, at least temporarily, and then just that thinking on your feet and the combination of that, with the time management, all the prep work, setting things up. I think that combinations is really good. I know, for me with the ADHD, it helps, but it can also, I do have to be very careful because with ADHD, there's a tendency for time to just kind of be very loosely defined while you're focused on something. It's very easy to lose track. I put a clock up right by my workstation. So literally it's right if I lift my eyes up to even think about something, I'll see the clock right there.
Yep, I got a nice Star Wars cuckoo clock that I have set right there.
Nice.
So I can look at, when, it's like, what time is it when, keeping track of time, and there's nothing wrong with time management. I mean, it's very good skill to have, and especially in this society, But of course, like with anything in life, people can take it to an extreme, and then it becomes a bad thing. So, it's all a matter of balance, I think.
Yeah, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Something I'm constantly talking to clients about, or rather than good or bad, I refer to everything as either helpful or unhelpful.
Right.
I think good, bad, positive, negative, rational, irrational, they're kind of judgy words. So I stay away from those. Just keep it generic of helpful or unhelpful. Is it beneficial, make your life better, or unhelpful where it doesn't? Because all emotions are natural. We all feel them, but it's the choices we make while we feel those that have the impact on our lives.
Right. Exactly. And well, let's go ahead and I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more Dungeons and Dragons and all things, great things like that. And we'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to the Bipolar DM Show. I'm your host, Jason, and we have on today Michael Thiel, therapist and dungeon master who does combines a bit of both into that world in making Dungeons and Dragons, or using Dungeons and Dragons in a therapeutic setting, which is so far has been very successful in a lot of practices. And now you work with both adults and kids in your practice. That's correct.
Yes. Yep.
And what's good with playing with kids? What's the youngest age that you usually have as far as for the Dungeons and Dragons?
I put like on our website where I have it listed, our youth group. I list from like 10-ish to up to 18. Because I don't go into all the graphic detail, like I would in a for fun game. It's more kid friendly, so I think it can go a little younger.
Or PG.
Yeah. And also the way I do the rules, especially I think I only have a couple people out of all the 3 groups that I'm doing that have ever played D&D prior to this. So I took the way that I kind of naturally DM and then moved it kind of to the extreme, because as a DM, I'm all about story and narrative, and I think mechanics should always just be in the background. So like one of my biggest pet peeves is when I say something as an NPC and a player just goes insight check.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more to an insight check than just that roll. Like I want to know.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking for? Like, what would make you think they're lying? Like, are they sweating? Do they seem nervous?
Right.
So I just tell new players, like, I literally, when I give a rules rundown before we start, I can explain the rules they need to know in less than 2 minutes.
Because let's go on that real quick. What are some of the basic rules that if you're introducing youth to that you use?
So before it starts, I just tell them, you don't have to worry about like all this stuff on the character sheet. You have no idea what it does. All you have to do is narrate to me. Tell me what your character does after I describe the situation. So like you don't have to worry about knowing what skill to have to roll. Like if there's a stream you want to jump over, or someone you want to talk to and persuade, just tell me, how you would jump over the river or what you would say to that person, things like that. So like literally all they have to do is tell me what their character does, and then I tell them what kind of role it is.
Okay.
And I actually have a new setup that I've just been trying out, just because we've had some technical difficulties. I think just some people are on like older computers, and like the RAM requirements I think can't keep up with Foundry, which is the VTT I've been using recently. And so now I just set up, it's all on Zoom, so I set up a player account basically, and I screen share the Foundry map on there, and then I actually move the tokens and roll everything for them even.
Okay.
Just to kind of take that technical thing out of the equation, because it's something that would have very little impact on the time in a 3-hour game. When I have a little less than an hour, little things add up very quickly, and then it feels like nothing happens in the session to the players. So,
right.
Yeah. So they just tell me, in combat, if they want to hit an enemy, what they want to do, if they're casting a spell. I changed up combat completely from the standard rules, because basically we did an entire hour-long session and got through 1 round of combat at level 1, and basically it's like an intro to combat kind of fight. And so basically we could spend months in a single fight at low levels. So I switched that up and tested out a simultaneous combat system. So the players all take their turn at the same time, the enemies all go at the same time. And what I found when I could do that actually is it adds to the teamwork building, because with your standard D&D combat rules, you can't talk and strategize between turns.
Right.
because that would be the players strategizing because the characters can't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So any strategy has to happen before the combat starts. But with this, they literally get to strategize, plan out their turn. They get a set amount of time, so it can so it works to build the teamwork, strategizing, working together to utilize each other's strengths, and things like that. So I basically went from it taking hours to get through a combat to can get a whole combat done in like 15 minutes ish.
Nice. That's pretty cool. And what other tips with working with kids? I've DM'd for kids and stuff like that. But what are some other tips that you have for when you're working with youth?
I think, like positive reinforcement is the best way to teach. Because then they'll change their behavior because they want that positive reinforcement. So I've been handing out. I focus a lot more on handing out DM inspiration when I can, because I think, like most DMs, it's really easy to forget about that because you get caught up in the game. But I focus on that. I also, as I was doing research for different types of combat, I just came across something called cinematic advantage, which is something I had incorporated previously, but this kind of firmed how it works. But it's basically when you use narrative and story to explain exactly what you're doing and how you would do it, and the more details you have, the more reasons why you give, that it would make it more likely for you to be successful. If you do it well enough, I give advantage on whatever role it is. So it can be like if you're trying to persuade somebody, a not uncommon thing to hear at the D&D table as well. I persuade them, I want them to drop their gold price by 20 gold, and then they just want to roll the dice and see what happens. But if they make an actual persuasive argument, I'll give them advantage on the roll. And if they do really well, I might lower the DC. I've even just not done rolls. Like if they've thought it out so well and laid out every step where I don't see any points of failure, basically, sometimes I just give it to them as the reward.
And
because that places the emphasis again on the story and the narrative and thinking creatively, and not just the mechanics of rolling the dice.
Yeah, and definitely makes the game a lot more flavorful too. Instead of just saying, "I roll persuasion," they actually role play out the situation and think it out and how they would do it, and definitely makes for more interesting gameplay and gets more player buy-in on the game too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I think when you place that focus on the narrative and story, especially for kids or any newer players, because like when you're learning a rules system, if you look through, the rules and mechanics in D&D can be very intimidating to a new player. When you just tell them, like, don't even worry about any of that. I'll tell you that stuff I'll tell you details as we come to it. Just tell me the story of what you're doing. And like in combat, it can work out really well. Just say you're a rogue and you have no way to get your sneak attack in. So maybe you narratively describe how you would do they jump off a ledge, do a flip over the enemy, and swing downward when you're above them, and then land. So then with that one, maybe do like an acrobatics check, and then but so with the cinematic advantage works in combat with just a way that you could realistically catch an enemy off guard. Again, why you would be more likely to be successful, and again, it pushes the creativity, the thinking outside the box, rather than just the standard flanking maneuvers, positioning,
back to Pathfinder.
But I think it's in general, the story is always the most important thing, and how the characters build that story just as much as the DM, if not more so.
Yeah, because it gets tough trying to carry a whole story by yourself. Because I've been in those games too, where everybody's just like, I roll for this, I roll for that, but they don't really go out and role play what they're doing.
Yeah, I think when the focus is too much on mechanics, I mean, you almost might as well just play a video game.
Yeah.
But yeah, like characters with a story. I know in a homebrew campaign I was running, I had this 4 month ish roughly plotted out story arc, and about less than a month in, they through a small thing that I said that they decided they wanted to do ended up leading to a series of events that first threw that last 3 months of story completely out the window and had to rework everything. And then, but
Mm-hmm.
like, that's just how much power the characters have over the story, which is, I think, one of the true, like, the best things about like D&D and other
Mm-hmm.
RPGs like it. Like, it's not just playing out a story that the DM is telling. It's
Yeah.
their choices
Yeah.
have just as much importance, and sometimes more when they do something completely unexpected that you'd never predict in a million years. But I think
Yeah,
that
especially
adds to the
that
fun.
brilliant idea how to defeat the Lich, or something like that you didn't even think about. It's amazing what the players will come up with, especially when you get two or three of them together and they're hatching out a plan on how to defeat something.
Oh yeah, like one of the with the simultaneous combat, which the players are still learning. Um, but I saw the best use of it yet, and actually it was the best use of the sleep spell I've ever seen, because it actually took out 8 enemies with a sleep
Hmm.
spell at level 1. Because and I'd forgotten that the wizard even had it. It was there was sturges flying over a pit basically,
Okay.
and you cast sleep, and I mean, of course, sturges all took the hit, and but then they plummeted into
Plummet to
very
their
far.
death.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. I was laughing. It was like it's the most creative, awesome use of sleep I've ever seen. And I
Yeah.
would have given him DM inspiration, but he already had it, so I couldn't give him another one.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, just that thinking outside of the box and doing things that we don't expect as DMs, and because it went from a difficult fight at level 1 to just very easy from there for them.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that it's important to balance the hard encounters where they
Mhm.
fear they're not going to make it, but sometimes you want to throw in the stuff where it lets them feel that power, the power of being the adventurer and just
Mhm.
kicking butt and taking numbers basically.
Yeah. Now let's shift gears a little bit again and talk about problem players. I sat in on a game with a brand new DM. It was her first time DMing, and one of the players chose a character that was basically a dick.
Mm.
And he used the excuse, well, my player's a dick, so I'm going to be a dick. And he ended up saying some things that are rather offensive. And she ended up asking me advice afterwards on how best to ask this guy never to come back. So,
That's one time as a player I made a character that was kind of leaned toward being an asshole, and
mm-hmm,
I realized very quickly that you may be doing what your character would do, but the other players just think you're an asshole as a player.
mm-hmm,
And so I did that very, very shortly, and then I refused. I said I vowed to never do that again, because it wasn't fun for me. It wasn't fun for anybody. So I
yeah,
think if the character is just kind of being an asshole, I think you just kind of do in-game consequences. Like if they're an asshole to an NPC, you find some way to bring in consequences, because I think whether
mm-hmm,
it's in therapy or just D&D in general, a very important lesson to teach players is that choices can have consequences.
right,
And so if they're a jerk to an NPC, maybe that NPC is the funny one I've been reading about on like Facebook and places is like if say they're a jerk to a merchant, maybe
mm-hmm,
that merchant is a retired adventurer, and
oh yeah,
maybe they kind of whoop that character, teach them a lesson, kind of thing. And you can do that, but then also if they're just being outright offensive and
mm-hmm,
ways that are just inappropriate in any setting, then you can kind of look at either having to talk with the player, or if it's bad enough, yeah, just find a way to ask them not to come back.
Yeah,
There's some offensive things. I think if somebody's willing to say it in game, I don't want that type of person in my game, basically.
Yeah, and I told her basically to be direct, list what his offenses were, the things that he had said that were offensive to the other players and to her personally. And, and don't sugarcoat it, just be, say this is not a good fit and maybe you'll be, better off finding another group to be in that would be more accepting to that kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that'll force them to take a look at their behavior and the things they're saying and the impact it has on other people. And then maybe they could learn from it and grow and make some changes themselves. And then the next time when they do that, they don't say those things.
Yeah, and the thing about it is the only person that seems to have fun when the character's a dick is the guy that's playing that character until the party turns on him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which usually ends up happening when they piss off enough street guards or gets them into a fight or whatever. The party eventually does turn on them, and I've seen that happen. And sometimes it goes well, and the person adjusts fire, and the game turns out to be a lot better. And other times they just peace out. If you don't want me here.
Yeah, and I think with the DM, you have to find that balance of talking to the person or letting them see, because if it takes multiple game sessions to get to that point, and all the other players are aggravated or offended, or anything like that, and it's building up over time, then we need to be able to look at that and work at reining it in.
Try to head it off before it gets too bad for everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, if they're saying things that are offensive and, any, racial, any preferences that someone has, anything like that, I think things like that, some things I think are almost unforgivable that they would say it. And then you may have to have that talk about why you're letting them out of the game. But if it's something more minor and just an attitude and the way they're interacting, just
more cumulative,
then you could just have a talk with them as DM to player outside of the game and explain to them, how it's coming across and get their side. Because I know, like me personally, I can say, for sure, I've meant to come across a certain way, and it didn't come across that way. It came across as something else, and then when somebody told me how it was coming across, then I made adjustments. I learned from it, made changes and adjustments, and was able to move on. But I think a lot of it can come down to the player, if they're open-minded and can understand, where the DM and the other players are coming from, or if they're a person that's like, well, that's the way I am or my character is, and if you don't like it, then I'll leave, kind of thing.
And this is where no real world consequences kind of comes in to play, or can come into play, where you have somebody like this in your game and you're throwing consequences at them for their behavior. And so if they had done, say, the same things in real life, they'd be out of a job and probably out of a lot of friends, or acquaintances and stuff like that. But it's great to take those opportunities too to help make corrections for people, if their behavior is way over the line or even close to being at the line.
Yeah, or even just maybe it can offer some self-awareness to them. Maybe they look at their life and the way they interact in real life and go, ooh, I do this stuff with other people. Is this having this impact on them too? And then you can take this game with this imaginary world and characters and apply lessons to it for real life.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to. The brilliance of using Dungeons and Dragons in a therapeutic session is that right there. Is taking what you learn in a game. I mean, Monopoly's great and all that, but I don't know how often you learn many life lessons from Monopoly. I mean, I'm sure you can learn about finance and investing and stuff like that, but interpersonal interactions and stuff like that, those are things that you do learn a lot from just playing D&D, because it's such a social game, and one of the great things I love about it.
Mm-hmm. And like I had just recently, I had one of my fellow clinicians that sees one of my group clients individually, um, and one of the main issues is social anxiety, social skills. It was something that that was not seeing much movement in individual, and he pulled me aside one day and was just telling me how uh, since the group started, how suddenly he's seen total changes and huge improvements and reduced social anxiety, increased social skills, and the only variable that's changed in that time was the start of the group therapy.
Yeah.
And he said it's amazing, and the client loves it. It's having a blast. So it was reaffirming to see, all that research I had read, all the information of the theoretical, the possibilities, to see it that it's actually
Seeing it played out.
yeah, and hearing from someone else that was such a significant change that they had to just pull me aside to tell me about it. Like that was really cool to see everything kind of reaffirmed and really
Yeah.
kind of locked into my mind how helpful this can be. And I started the adult group because as I was doing the research, I found again I with ADHD, I'm very tangential in my thinking, and was reading an article and I saw just a brief reference about adults benefiting from it. So then I switched gears a little bit and then I found an article on that. And so with like play therapy, typically we associate that with children in therapy and the therapeutic value it has. But the thing is, research shows adults value from play therapy, or even when we're just playing D&D for fun and not therapeutic, just that sense of play. Adults benefit just as much as kids do. But the thing is, the older we get, the harder it is to find age appropriate ways to play.
Yeah.
There's just not as many options to do as an adult as there are as a kid, and D&D is a perfect way for an adult to engage in that play and get the benefits of that, plus all the social interactions and all the things like that, everything that can be gained.
Well, that's pretty cool. And talking about the adult games, what's some of the major differences between gaming with the adults versus the youth?
So I've only had one actual gameplay session so far. The adult is a relatively new one that I've started up, and we spent with that one. I've learned a lot from previous groups as I go, because a lot of the typical structures, the doing it in an hour instead of 3, and different things like that. It's there's some minor and some major changes that need to be made with that always in mind. So I did a full, actually, like 2 session zeros basically, where we built characters and kind of talked story, and then where I had to meet each other outside the city where they were going, and I threw an NPC that they ran into on the road just to kind of facilitate, conversation in game without, that way I can interact with the characters and not be the DM interacting with them, with the players. Right. And so we focused on that and getting to know each other a little bit, and then we went into the first session. So far, I think I haven't run into too many differences. One thing I did, like I told them in the reality, the world where this exists, and this is true for the children and the adults in the therapeutic setting, like alcohol and any other intoxicants were never invented. They don't exist. Just because, well, with under 18 kids, that could lead to awkwardness. And then just to keep it simple, I just also thought that was something I didn't really want to explore with the adults, so I just left that out as well.
Right. Okay.
But so far, not a ton of changes. I think I will be adapting the story a little bit. I'm actually running It's based off of the Waterdeep Dragons Heist module.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at running that one soon. I'm thinking about picking that one up. That's a really
Oh, it's a
interesting one.
lot of fun. It was actually it was the first game I ran online when I switched online when COVID started, when I was still pretty new at DMing. So I've wanted to run it again for a while because I've learned a ton in the last couple years. And but I liked this one because it's got heist right in the title. I think that right there sets it apart from
and dragons.
Yeah, and there's a lot of social interaction built into it already, and then I just emphasize it even more, and I'll be adding homebrew stuff. And once the players start to figure out what they like, what they don't like, then I can start tweaking and adjusting. Because every group is different. Like some groups, like combat's their thing; they love combat or exploring or.
I got my one group, a bunch of murder hobos.
Yeah, I've been there.
So it's just like I don't even plan social interactions anymore with this group. They're just going to go in and kill everybody.
Yeah, and that's if you can design the game in a way it's fun for you as the DM and they get to do their thing and have fun, then cool. But the therapeutic setting and with the focus on social interactions, murder hoboing would be cross purpose.
Yeah, yep.
But I even have the second group I started online was we ran the Descent into Avernus module.
Oh, okay.
And it was just one of those things. I just posted on Facebook, I need players, and got 6 random people together. And they just came together in this amazing group and had the best RP. Like, literally, there was times I could sit back for 45 minutes while they just role played with each other. And I would just listen. And it was so good. I enjoyed it. It was almost like watching a movie, kind of.
Yeah,
and it saved me a lot of work with them, filling in that much time themselves. But
those are great when you get those groups where you don't feel like you're carrying so much of the water to keep the game going on, but it's more organic, more free flowing, and I really enjoy those games a lot when those happen.
Yeah, that was the first group that I actually noticed that can happen. Like prior to that, as a newer DM, I just thought, the bulk of it's on the DM. You got to come up with all this stuff, and then, they kind of showed me like, all right, I can loosen up the reins a little bit, let them have it, and they ended up having so much fun when we finished the module. They asked me to continue at homebrew because they love their characters, they love the group, so. We still have it going. We're on a bit of a hiatus right now, just because some time issues I'm having. But we're going to continue that. They're at level 15 now, and
okay.
But it's great group. And the other game I run there, that one's different because it's one that's evolved. It's actually Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I continued that after Dragon's Heist. And that one I've actually cycled through, I think, 17 players from the start of Heist to where we're at now. And it just slowly evolved over time to now I have 5 players that, again, it's an amazing group. They work together. They're really creative.
Yeah.
It's interesting how sometimes you get lucky and just the group comes together immediately. And other times it evolves and it just comes to that point. But when it does, it's such a great thing as the DM when you have that awesome group of players that works together and is creative, and especially in a game like Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is just dungeon crawl after dungeon crawl, literally.
Yeah, I'm running that right now for a group. They're only on the 3rd level, but they're having a blast though because they're very combat heavy, so they really enjoy. Going through and hack and slash and everything like that, which is fine with Dungeon of the Mad Mage. What's interesting though about that particular module though, or campaign, is that the opportunities it gives you to just talk your way through so many of the encounters too, which I actually like and wish my characters sometimes would engage more in. I mean, they did last night, but it was like pulling teeth for them. When they're like, we can negotiate. I don't like this.
Yeah, that was one. As we played and evolved and went through the levels, because we're on. I think we just got to level 9, I think, and something I learned along the way, and then started telling the players and the new players as they joined is like, not every scenario has to be combat, and it's over time it's gotten to, especially with this version of the group, combat is not their first thought. Yeah, they will talk first, and but they always take character into account. Like one of their characters in their backstory, they just despise drow, and that is something that comes up. At least where we've been to, can come up fairly
more than
often.
a few times. Yeah.
So it's always very interesting interactions, because the player, who's awesome, takes that into account, but doesn't just use it as an excuse to just murder every drow he sees. He flavors all the RP with those feelings in the background of how the character is like, all right, I hate these people, I despise them because of what they did to me in the past, but like I don't want to pick a fight that just gets all of us killed. So like they'll interact with them, but like they'll just throw in little, sometimes very subtle hints, and sometimes very not subtle at all. But it's just it leads to awesome interactions.
Okay. Well, we're right about at time now, so that went pretty quick. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm going to throw you in the back room just real quick, and as I do the exit. And but thank you so much for coming on, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
Really appreciate having you back and talking with you and what you got going on.
Thanks, appreciate it. As always, it was a lot of fun.
All right, we'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
And that's it for today's show. I am Jason. I am the Bipolar DM, and I want to thank you so much for listening or watching us on WLFE-DB.com. You can see us live Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Strim TV on the Variety Unlimited channel if you're using a Roku, or if you go to twitch.tv/TheBipolarDM. There you can watch this show. Also, you can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. We're on most of them, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. So be sure to check us out on podcast as well. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach me by email at thebipolardm@gmail.com, or visit my webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. Thank you again for tuning in to the Bipolar DM Show. I'm your host, Jason, and remember, everybody, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.